Have you ever noticed how the quiet ones always seem to move differently? While the world shouts and rushes, they listen, observe, and strike only when it matters. Their silence isn't emptiness, it's precision, a strategy forged in stillness. Behind every calm face lies a mind at work. Stay close, and you'll see why silence builds success. As we step into the first chapter, imagine the kind of silence that hums beneath deep thought, not the silence of emptiness, but the silence before creation. That quiet moment when you look at the world and everything slows down, the noise fades, the crowd disappears, and all that's left is the rhythm of your own reasoning. Quiet people live there. They don't rush to speak. They don't move because others do. They take their time, and in that time, they build empires within their minds. Most people mistake stillness for hesitation. They think silence means weakness. But Marcus Aurelius once said, "To be calm is the highest achievement of the self." The calm mind sees clearly. The quiet mind plans precisely. Before a warrior strikes, he studies the field. Before an architect lays a stone, he sees the structure in his mind. Quiet people are like that, planners of unseen dimensions. They process life like strategists preparing for a long campaign. Each thought measured. Each decision tested in silence before it ever touches the world. Think of a mountain before the storm. The winds scream around it, yet it doesn't flinch. Inside, it's steady. That's how silent people operate. They absorb information, watching how others rush and stumble over their own impulses, while the loud chase applause, the quiet refine direction. They don't crave reaction, they crave precision. When they finally act, it's clean. No wasted energy, no needless motion. Their moves cut through the noise like a blade through fog. I once knew a man who rarely spoke in meetings. He'd listen as everyone scrambled for attention, throwing ideas like arrows in the dark. He'd lean back, hands folded, eyes still. Days later, he'd return with a plan that solved what none of us could fix. Not because he was smarter, but because he waited. He allowed silence to do the heavy lifting. He gave space for truth to rise to the surface. When he spoke, people leaned in, not because he demanded it, but because his words carried the weight of thought. This is the art of deliberate thinking, something Stoicism calls phronesis, the wisdom of practical judgment. It's not theory, it's execution guided by reflection. Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." The quiet don't waste. They invest their time in clarity. They question every move, not out of fear, but discipline. While the world glorifies speed, they master timing. And timing, when governed by patience, becomes power. When you move with such precision, success stops being a matter of chance. It becomes a natural outcome. The quiet planner doesn't seek control over others, only mastery over himself. He knows that the one who acts without reflection burns out in his own fire, but the one who thinks deeply builds a light that never flickers. Strategy, after all, is not about prediction. It's about preparation. It's the bridge between vision and endurance. So when life demands urgency, remember this: the Stoic way is not to react, but to respond. It's to pause before the next step, to see the whole before moving a single piece. Because silence isn't the absence of thought, it's the sharpening of it. Those who understand this don't rush towards success. They draw it toward them, quietly, steadily, through the discipline of planning. And from here, as the dust of their stillness settles, another truth begins to rise, that silence not only plans, but listens, and in that listening, wisdom takes root. Moving into the second chapter, picture a room full of voices, each one louder than the last. Everyone talks, everyone wants to be heard, but in one corner there's someone silent. Eyes calm, body still. They don't interrupt. They don't compete. They listen. And when they finally speak, every word feels like it was drawn from a deeper place. That's the paradox of the quiet ones. They say little, yet understand much. Listening is not the absence of speech. It is the presence of awareness. When you listen, truly listen, you begin to see beneath the surface of words, the fear behind the anger, the need behind the demand, the truth buried under noise. The Stoics called this practice attention of the soul, a discipline that keeps you rooted while the world keeps shouting. Seneca once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we may listen more and talk less." He wasn't talking about manners. He was talking about mastery, the mastery of perception, of understanding what others miss because they're too busy trying to prove themselves. Now, imagine a craftsman at work. He doesn't talk while shaping the marble. He studies it, listens to the stone. Every sound of the chisel tells him where to strike next. That's how the quiet succeed. They listen to life itself. A good listener doesn't just absorb information, they read the rhythm of reality. Whether it's the pulse of a conversation, the silence between sentences, or the shift in someone's tone, they sense what's unspoken. I once met a business owner who built an empire not by speaking more, but by asking fewer, better questions. He said little in meetings. Instead, he watched how people reacted to pressure, to praise, to failure. When his competitors spoke to impress, he listened to understand. When others rushed to sell, he waited to hear what the customer truly needed. And that's why his success seemed effortless. It wasn't built on noise, but on insight. Listening requires humility, the kind the Stoics valued above all. To listen is to admit you don't already know. It's to open yourself to truth instead of defending your pride. Most people listen to reply. The wise listen to comprehend, and through that understanding they gain power. Not power over others, but power over outcomes. Because when you can hear what others overlook, you can see what others never will. Epictetus once reminded his students, "If you wish to be a good learner, first learn to listen." This isn't just philosophy, it's survival. In every relationship, every pursuit, the ability to listen transforms chaos into clarity. The one who listens calmly in the middle of conflict sees through the smoke while others choke on it. The one who listens to advice from those who have walked the road before him saves years of wandering. The truth is, silence sharpens intuition. It filters out the noise of ego. The quiet listener learns not only what others think, but who they are. And once you see people clearly, you stop being easily deceived, manipulated, or swayed. Listening in its purest form is an act of strength disguised as gentleness. So, if you ever wonder why some succeed without shouting, look closely. They mastered the art of receiving before responding. They let others reveal their cards while they keep their own close. They win, not by volume, but by vision. And as we move forward, remember this: the world belongs not to those who speak the loudest, but to those who can stay still long enough to truly hear. From that stillness, a deeper power begins to grow, the power to manage life itself with clarity and grace. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine standing in the middle of a storm, not the kind that breaks trees, but the kind that breaks focus. Notifications flash, voices pull, thoughts collide. Everywhere you turn, something is demanding your attention. And yet, somewhere beneath that noise, there's a still place waiting to be found. That place is silence. It's not emptiness. It's space. The space where your mind can finally breathe. In a world obsessed with constant movement, stillness becomes rebellion. Most people drown in noise without realizing it. They wake up to screens, rush into conversations, consume endless information, and end their days exhausted by voices that aren't their own. They wonder why they feel lost, anxious, unfocused, yet they've never given their mind the chance to be quiet. Seneca once said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." The Stoics knew that silence is not withdrawal, it's recalibration. Our minds are like a battlefield cluttered with messages, opinions, and demands. Every day, thousands of arrows of information strike at our attention. Without silence, we become the soldier who never leaves the field, always fighting, never resting. But when you step back, when you let stillness wash over you, the dust settles. You begin to see things clearly again. The chaos doesn't stop, but your perception changes. And that shift, that calm clarity, is the root of strength. I remember a friend who built his success in a world that never stops talking. Finance, meetings, calls, constant updates. Yet he had a ritual that baffled everyone. Every morning before touching his phone, he'd sit by the window for 20 minutes. No sound, no input. Just breathing and observing the sky. When I asked why, he smiled and said, "If I start my day in silence, nothing outside can shake me." That was his discipline, a Stoic practice disguised as simplicity. The truth is, silence doesn't just calm the mind, it sharpens it. It gives birth to insight. It separates what matters from what doesn't. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But how can your thoughts have quality if they're constantly interrupted? How can wisdom emerge if your mind never rests long enough to listen to itself? Quiet moments are where understanding takes root. Think of the archer again. He cannot hit the target if his hands tremble. He must steady his breath before the release. Life is no different. When you grow accustomed to silence, you stop reacting to every noise, every demand, every distraction. You begin to act from principle, not impulse. You don't rush to fix everything. You observe, discern, and move only when necessary. That's how you stay ahead in a demanding life. You become unshakable, not because the world is calm, but because you are. And that is the Stoic secret freedom through stillness. Silence is not the absence of effort, it is the alignment of effort with purpose. It's where clarity is born, where true control begins. So when the world grows loud and your thoughts scatter, retreat, not in fear, but in mastery. Step back, breathe. Let the noise pass through you like wind through a canyon. Because the one who knows how to be still in chaos commands it. From here, we move to another gift of the quiet mind, the rare ability to decide with clarity when others crumble in confusion. From here, we enter the fourth chapter, the place where silence turns into strength, the power to decide. Every life rises or falls on the quality of its decisions. Some rush to choose and stumble. Others wait too long and watch chances fade. But those who live quietly, who train their minds to think before they move, hold an advantage that the noisy never see coming. The world mistakes stillness for hesitation, but the Stoics saw it differently. They called it deliberation. To pause is not to doubt, it is to measure. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "A man's worth is measured by the things he can set aside without losing himself." The quiet person knows this truth. They stand before life's crossroads without panic, observing, reflecting, listening for what is not immediately visible. Their decision doesn't come from impulse, it comes from understanding. Imagine a sailor steering through fog. The impatient one moves fast, hoping luck will guide him. The wise one slows down, listens to the wind, studies the rhythm of the waves. He trusts his senses, he trusts the silence. When he finally adjusts the sail, it's with precision. That's what silent people do. They listen for direction, even when the world shouts for haste. A friend once told me about the moment that changed his career. He had two choices: follow the crowd into a safe job, or pursue a path that no one believed in. Everyone told him to be practical, but he didn't rush. He spent weeks in quiet observation, writing down every fear, every reason for and against. Then, one morning, he woke up clear. He made his decision, not out of excitement, but certainty. Years later, that same decision became the foundation of his success. He told me, "The silence didn't give me answers. It cleared the noise so I could hear my own." That's the art of Stoic decision-making, clarity over chaos. It's the courage to choose, not because it feels good, but because it's right. Epictetus reminded his students, "When a man knows not what to do, let him stand still." The pause is not weakness, it's mastery in disguise. Every good decision is born from that pause, that breath between reaction and response. Quiet thinkers hold three weapons that most overlook: deep thought, observation, and intuition. They don't need endless opinions because they have trained themselves to see patterns, to read people, to sense timing. These aren't talents, they're disciplines. When they fail, they learn swiftly, not through regret, but through refinement. They treat every mistake as a teacher, every outcome as data for the next move. But the greatest difference lies in perception. If you see your stillness as a flaw, it will limit you. If you see it as a power, it will open every door. The Stoics never tried to be louder than life. They learned to listen to it. The quiet mind doesn't wait for luck. It builds the path that others call fate. So, when the world pressures you to act fast, remember, wisdom doesn't rush. It observes, it listens, then it strikes with purpose. And as the dust of your decision settles, something else awakens within that silence, the spark of creation. Because when your choices are clear, your mind becomes free to build, to imagine, to create. At this stage, the silence begins to speak in color. You can almost hear it. The hum of thoughts beneath the surface, the quiet current of imagination that never stops flowing. While others fill the air with noise, the silent ones build entire worlds inside their minds. Their solitude is not emptiness. It's a workshop, a forge, the place where observation turns into creation. Creativity doesn't bloom in chaos. It grows in stillness. Seneca once said, "There is no genius without a touch of solitude." The Stoics understood this truth deeply. The mind must retreat inward to produce anything of worth. For the quiet soul, that retreat is constant. They absorb the world without rushing to respond. They watch. They notice details others overlook. The hesitation in a voice, the flicker of light on a wall, the patterns that life hides in plain sight. These small fragments become raw material for their imagination. I once knew a woman who worked in a crowded office. She rarely spoke in meetings, never fought for attention. People assumed she had little to contribute, yet after work, in her small apartment, she painted, not for recognition, not for praise, but because her silence had gathered too much beauty to keep inside. Months later, her art was discovered by chance. Her colleagues were shocked by the depth of her work, but she smiled and said, "I just see more when I'm quiet." That is the power of observation, turning stillness into vision. The quiet mind is a vessel constantly filling with impressions. Every word heard, every face seen, every emotion felt adds another drop to the reservoir. And at some point, that reservoir must overflow into expression. For some, it becomes music. For others, writing, building, designing, or problem-solving. Their creativity isn't forced, it's the natural result of deep awareness. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. What you take in shapes what you give out." The silent people take in life slowly, deliberately, allowing meaning to sink deep. That's why their creations often carry weight. They don't imitate, they interpret. They give the world what the world itself whispered to them in moments of stillness. The noisy often mistake movement for progress, but the quiet know better. They understand that imagination needs breathing space. A cluttered mind cannot build anything new, so they step away. They withdraw not to escape, but to recharge, to listen, to let the mind stretch beyond limits. This kind of solitude isn't isolation, it's craftsmanship. It's where ideas are sculpted into form. Think of the blacksmith before the flame. Every strike of the hammer is preceded by silence, every shape refined by patience. That's how creativity works in the silent heart. It takes time, attention, and restraint. The Stoics taught that control over one's inner world leads to mastery over the outer. The creative act is proof of that. It's order born from quiet contemplation. So if you ever feel overlooked because you speak less, remember this: you are gathering. Every quiet hour is building something inside you that one day will demand expression. You are not behind, you are preparing. And when your silence finally speaks, it will speak volumes, because in a world that glorifies noise, creation still belongs to those who can hear the whisper beneath it. And from that whisper comes another strength, one equally rare: the ability to focus so completely that nothing can break your flow. Entering the 6th chapter, picture a craftsman at his bench. Around him the city hums, people rush, noise fills every corner, yet he doesn't hear it. His eyes are locked on the work before him, every movement deliberate, every breath steady. Hours pass, but for him, time has no weight. That's what focus feels like, total immersion in the task at hand, as if the world itself fades into silence. The Stoics called this discipline of attention the true mark of mastery. Seneca once wrote, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." In other words, scattering your mind weakens it. Strength, clarity, and purpose come only from the one who can give himself fully to what he's doing now. Quiet people understand this instinctively. Their minds are not pulled in 1,000 directions. They move like archers, calm, patient, aiming once, hitting true. Distraction is the great thief of modern life. It steals not only time, but peace. Every sound, every screen, every alert pulls us away from the present moment until we are no longer living but merely reacting. The silent know this. That's why they guard their attention like treasure. They choose solitude not to escape, but to protect the space where creation and progress happen. I once knew a man who ran a small workshop making custom leather journals. He never owned a smartphone, never rushed to answer every call. People thought he was old-fashioned, maybe even stubborn. But when I visited his shop, I understood. Every corner was quiet, every tool in place. He worked with such presence that even watching him felt meditative. He told me, "The world runs faster every day. I'd rather master one thing completely than chase everything halfway." That sentence stayed with me for years. It was pure stoicism in motion. Focus isn't just about discipline, it's about respect. Respect for your time, your purpose, your craft. The Stoic way is not to do everything, but to do what matters with full attention. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, "Do what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness." That's the philosophy of the silent worker. They don't look around to see who's watching. They don't crave validation. Their fulfillment comes from doing the work well, not being seen doing it. When you master focus, productivity becomes a byproduct, not a goal. You begin to experience what the Stoics called ataraxia, tranquility in action. You're no longer fighting distractions because you've built a mind strong enough to ignore them. You understand that the ability to concentrate is not a gift, but a muscle forged through repetition and patience. The quiet have trained it daily, sometimes without realizing it. There's a strange power that comes with this kind of still focus. The world expects noise, constant movement, frantic effort. But when you meet it with calm precision, it doesn't know how to respond. That's why silent people often outperform the loud. They're not faster, they're clearer. They finish what they start because they never let their attention drift. So, if your mind feels scattered, slow down. Silence is not a pause from life. It's the sharpening of life itself. The more still your thoughts become, the more exact your actions will be. Because when your focus deepens, even ordinary tasks become sacred. And from that inner steadiness grows something rarer still, the ability to speak not often, but with purpose, choosing words like a master chooses his next stroke. Now imagine this moment, a room full of voices, everyone talking, filling every pause with noise, afraid of silence as if it were a void that might expose something real. People laugh too loudly, explain too much, talk just to prove they belong, but in the corner sits someone quiet. They don't rush to fill the air. They let silence linger like a friend. When they finally speak, everyone listens. Their words land like stones dropped into still water, small but deep. Silence makes many uncomfortable because it strips away the mask of control. Yet, to the Stoic mind, silence is power. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The more you say, the less you remember." He understood that speech should serve truth, not vanity. The quiet person knows this. They weigh words the way a jeweler weighs gold, carefully, with precision, never wasting what is valuable. To them, speech is not performance, it's purpose. There's a strength in holding your tongue when the world begs you to react. It's not about fear or shyness, it's discipline. The Stoics believed that words should be guided by reason, not emotion. Epictetus reminded his students, "Be silent for the most part, or speak only what is necessary." Silence is not suppression, it's self-mastery. It's the art of letting your thoughts mature before you release them into the world. I remember once watching a debate where two men argued fiercely, their words like weapons, each trying to overpower the other. Then, when the noise finally died down, an older man who had been silent the entire time spoke just one sentence. His tone was calm, his words simple, but they cut through the chaos like light through fog. Everyone fell quiet. Not because he shouted, but because he'd earned his silence. His restraint gave weight to his voice. That's what the quiet understand. The fewer words you use, the more they matter. When you don't speak often, your voice becomes something rare, something that demands attention. In a world addicted to noise, scarcity breeds value. Each word you choose becomes a blade, sharp from care, precise from patience. The Stoics practiced this in their daily reflections. They wrote more than they spoke. They observed more than they argued. They understood that silence refines thought, and refined thought refines speech. To speak clearly, you must first think clearly, and to think clearly, you must learn to be still. That's why the quiet tend to be more persuasive, not because they talk more, but because when they do, it's real. So when you find yourself in conversation, don't fear the pauses. Let them breathe. Don't rush to fill every gap. Let your silence speak before your words do. Seneca once warned, speech is a mirror of the soul. If that's true, then your pauses are the moments when the soul prepares its reflection. Quiet people know this truth well. They understand that words once spoken cannot be taken back. But silence always remains in your control. To speak with weight, speak less. To make your words matter, guard them like treasure, because in the end, it's not how much you say that defines your influence. It's how deeply your silence makes others listen. And from that silence, another truth emerges when you stop seeking recognition. Obscurity becomes your greatest teacher. And when you no longer need the world's attention, obscurity stops being a shadow. It becomes your sanctuary. At this stage, we step into the final chamber of silence, the space where obscurity becomes power. Picture this, a dim workshop in the quiet hours of night. The streets are empty, the noise of the day has dissolved into a soft hum, and in that stillness, someone works alone. No crowd, no validation, just the steady rhythm of creation, breath, motion, thought, precision. The world won't see it, not yet, but something is taking shape in the dark. Most never notice that silence isn't retreatee. It's where strength learns to stand. We live in an era that worships attention. People chase recognition as if being seen were the same as being significant. They post before they practice, announce before they begin, and crave applause for things not yet done. But as the Stoics taught, fame is a fragile currency. It changes with the crowd. Seneca once said, "He who seeks approval from others has already lost control over himself." When your sense of worth depends on how loudly the world claps, you become a slave to its moods. The quiet ones know this truth by heart. That's why they build in silence, not because they fear judgment, but because they have nothing to prove. The Stoic path is one of inward expansion. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself each morning, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. And that is exactly what the quiet do. They don't speak of greatness, they practice it. They aren't distracted by the glitter of attention because they understand that recognition can never replace self-respect. While others chase validation, they cultivate depth. Their solitude isn't loneliness, it's a forge. Imagine a sculptor carving marble. Each strike of the chisel is deliberate, each pause sacred. To the outside world, it looks like nothing is happening, just a person standing before a block of stone. But beneath that surface, something remarkable is emerging. That's how silent people live. They chip away at their weaknesses, refine their strengths, polish their craft until one day the form within reveals itself. And when it does, it appears sudden, as if success arrived overnight. But it didn't. It came quietly, through countless nights of obscurity and self-discipline. I once met a musician who played in empty bars for years. No record deals, no audience waiting, just him, his guitar, and the silence that greeted every note. When I asked why he kept going, he smiled and said, "Because every night I play, I'm becoming someone my future self will thank." Years later, his music found its way to thousands of ears, and the world called him an overnight success. But he knew better. Success was simply the world finally noticing what silence had built all along. That's what the Stoics meant when they spoke of effete, excellence for its own sake. To do something well not because others are watching, but because not doing it well would betray who you are. The quiet understand that greatness isn't born from noise, it's born from focus, from the kind of devotion that asks for nothing in return. They are patient with their own evolution. They allow time to test their work because they know that anything built too fast falls just as quickly. Seneca warned, "Associate with people who will make a better man of you." But sometimes the best companion is solitude itself. When you remove the audience, you remove the pressure to perform. You stop living to be impressive and start living to be effective. That's why obscurity is not a curse, it's a classroom. It teaches humility, patience, and the strength to grow without approval. In the quiet, mistakes are private. Lessons are personal. Growth is pure. There's a rare peace in being unseen. When no one is watching, you can fail freely, experiment boldly, and rise again without shame. You can focus on substance instead of appearance. The loud rush for visibility, the quiet refine for longevity. One day, when the world finally looks their way, they'll see something that's not just new, it's timeless. Marcus Aurelius once reflected, "The universe is change, life is opinion." The quiet live by that truth. They know fame fades, opinions shift, and applause dies as soon as it's heard. But inner excellence, the kind forged in silence, remains. Their solitude sharpens them. It burns away the ego, the need to be admired, the hunger for validation. What's left is discipline, focus, and calm, the three ingredients of unshakable strength. And so, when the quiet finally step into the light, people are stunned. They call it sudden, they call it luck. They never see the 1,000 silent days that came before. But the Stoic smiles, because he never needed them to. He knows that obscurity was the gift. It allowed him to grow roots before branches, wisdom before recognition. So if you ever feel invisible, take heart. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. Like the seed buried in soil, your time in the dark is not punishment. It's preparation. Use it. Learn. Refine. Become. Because one day when the world finally sees you, it won't just see what you do, it will see who you've become. In the end, the Stoic doesn't chase the spotlight. He understands that true light comes from within. Recognition may follow, or it may not. But mastery, peace, and purpose, those are certain rewards. So build quietly, grow privately. Let your work whisper until it roars. In the end, you won't need to prove anything. Your silence will have already spoken for you. Confuse them with your silence and let your results speak louder than any words. True strength is never loud. It grows quietly within and shines when the time is right. Success does not need to be declared. It unfolds through calm persistence and steady action. If this message touched you, subscribe to stay on this journey of stillness and wisdom. Comment below, stay silent, and remember, your peace is your greatest power.